It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So glad to be with you this morning, and I am live in the studio today, so I want to hear from you guys. I'd really love to hear, what some of your questions are about this market. What are your concerns? I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different types of people that are in different, frames of mind about what's happening in this market. And of course, it's my job, my responsibility on this program, which I've been doing for the past 8 years, to make sense out of this crazy real estate market, to help provide you with news and market updates and my experience as somebody that's sold well over 1,000 homes in the Charleston area and has been in the top 1% every year since 2009 of agents in this market, just to help you guys better understand what's really happening, what's happening behind the scenes, what are agents talking about, what should you know, and how can you become more informed as a consumer. So if you'd like to call into the studio and ask me some questions, would love to hear from you guys. My number is 843-556-1250. That's the number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. Now, if you'd like to reach out to me personally and have a discussion about real estate, you're thinking about buying or selling a home, investing in real estate, renovating your property, we're going to get into that in quite a bit of detail this show. But if you'd like to reach out to me personally, my cell phone number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So I want to talk about a few things over the course of the next hour. I've got a lot of information that I want to cover, and of course want to get to your questions. Anything that is on your mind, concerns that you have, questions you have about the market, 843-556-1250. And I'll tell you that, and we went into a lot of detail last weekend about what's going on in different areas of the Charleston Tri-County market. I broke it down by area. I even broke it down by price range. I told you what was happening now versus 3 years prior versus 5 years prior. If you missed that show and you want that information, listingsincharleston.com. It's on our website, and of course, we've got literally hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube. Just search Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, and you'll find it. But I'll tell you that this pandemic has really had a different impact on different types of people. Obviously, you've got buyers, sellers, investors, agents, service providers, everybody connected to housing in some way, shape, or form. And so, and as I've mentioned on this program, it's almost counterintuitive what's happening right now. We keep, at least here in the Charleston area, we keep seeing reports of new cases spiking, and it seems like things are getting a little worse, yet the real estate market continues to get hotter. We continue to put more and more properties under contract, and we're just not putting enough new inventory on the market to keep up with all this demand. Frankly, it's a little insane. I'd mentioned last show that, on my team, the average amount of time it's taking us to put a home under contract once we list it for sale, 7 days. The market average is still, depending upon where you live, between, 45 and, 65 days. But just 7 days. And, not a lot of people are prepared for that. In fact, I think it spoiled us a little bit. Because if a property's on the market for more than a week, we're kind of like, well, what's going on? What's wrong? That's just not reality, but I will tell you that's been over the course of over, 40 sales. So that's not just the typical real estate agent having one really good sale or getting lucky and saying, this is what you expect when you work with me. And I do want to talk about how this market is impacting agents and the way in which they consult you. Because you're going to have a few different, versions of that. You're going to have the agents that think the sky's falling. They're going to scare you into a decision. They're going to try and motivate you into moving before you're ready to move or have a reason to move, which means that process, that transaction is likely going to be a challenging one. because there's no real motivation behind it. But they do also say that timing is everything, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, I think, what's going to happen, as time goes by, and why it might make sense for you to think about selling your house right now. You might not need to sell, but maybe you want to sell. I think in several instances, it makes sense to do that right now. If you look at the housing market in general, I think we're seeing, frankly, just the beginnings of like a secular shift in household behavior. Think about it. Millennials. We've talked about millennials on this show for years and years and years. They are aging. They're getting married. They're starting families. And I think we tend to focus on the younger portion of millennials, because they're 24 to 39 years old. But the older ones are 39 years old. I think we think of millennials as these almost like punk kids that never grew up. They're 28, 30 years old, and they don't have any ambition in life. That seems to be the definition of a millennial for whatever reason. I don't know. But, in the workforce, man, they have been hit really hard by the pandemic. A survey recently came out that said a little over 50% of those surveyed had their hours cut, their pay decreased, they'd been furloughed, they'd been terminated. And further research showed that people who enter the workforce during a downturn can earn less money and kind of prolong the career path that they choose to go on. It's going to take them longer to make more money for up to 15 years, instead of course, sending millennials into greater responsibility and having higher paid jobs when the economy is really good. So that's this problem that we're going to, I think, run into, is that, we've got, instead of sending millennials into greater responsibility and higher income potential, early roles that they're being launched into are going to create some career uncertainty. It's going to keep them in a lower income path. It's going to trickle down into their ability to generate wealth and ultimately buy real estate or more expensive real estate. And the market's not going to wait around for them. Prices are still going up. In many areas, prices are still going up. And in some areas, it's not necessarily that the prices are going up. It's just that people are becoming more realistic about what those properties are going to sell for. I've told this example multiple times to people recently, and it's absolutely true. What we've seen for years and years are, let's say a home hits the market for $400,000. And the neighbor down the street says, oh, well, they're listed at $400,000. I'm going to try it at $409,000. The next person next street over says, oh, I'm going to try it $412,500, then $415,000. And the next thing you know, you have a street, an area, a section of a subdivision, an entire subdivision that's just overpriced. And overpriced listings create more overpriced listings. And so then somebody takes a stand and they say, you know what? I'm going to drop mine down to $395,000. And they sell it at $395,000. And then everybody else that had their home on the market or that has been watching value says, oh, well, yeah, they sold, but they gave it away. That was some sort of special circumstance. Something was going on there, because that's not what homes are worth in this area. But it is. It's just that everybody else has been hoping for somebody to come along and pay top dollar, and that's what they were willing to pay. And so now these homes that are sitting on the market for months and months and months that are expiring off the market, the agreement between them and their real estate agent has ended, and they're getting bombarded with phone calls from other real estate agents saying, well, hey, I can sell it. I can sell it. I can sell it. I've got a buyer. Let me in. Let's meet. And they're realizing, I think in many instances, that, okay, yeah, I was a little off the mark. I was asking a little too much. That's about one half of what's going on with sellers. The other half is that they're just not getting the attention and the exposure that some of these properties need and deserve right now. The agents have been used to things being pretty darn easy, if I'm being honest. They put it on the MLS. Maybe they do an open house. Maybe they post it on their own Facebook page, which is kind of like a billboard to nowhere if they don't have anybody following it. it goes on Zillow, Realtor.com, all these other websites. That happens automatically. As soon as the property goes in the MLS, it goes on all those other websites. And then they just kind of sit around and hope for the best. They put your home on a conveyor belt and they hit the start button. And once 30 days goes by, they say, boom, time for a price reduction. Another 30 days, boom, time for a price reduction. There's no strategy there. There's no recurring marketing that's happening. There's no way of gauging whether what they're doing is working or not. It's purely price-based. All these conversations we have with sellers are like, I just don't feel like our home was being truly marketed that well. As a seller, you should be asking the agent you interview, what are you going to do specifically to find buyers for my home? Not how are they going to find my listing, because that's reactive marketing. How are you going to go out and proactively find buyers for my property? What systems do you have in place that allow you to do that? Do you have any systems in place that allow you to do that? So, back to this, kind of train of thought that I'm on here. As these properties become more realistic about their asking price, they sell quickly. There's a huge difference between the properties that sit on the market and those that sell. And the ones that are selling are the ones that are priced closer to what the home is actually worth. That's why we're getting, homes sold in 7 days, among many other things. But that's one of the reasons why, is we've shortened that distance between the asking price and the sales price. And our homes are selling for 99% of asking price. So it's not like if your home is worth $400,000 and we price it at $405,000, that it's going to end up selling for, $375,000. It's not like there's this built-in percentage of negotiability that's going to get taken off of the sales price of your house no matter what. If your home was worth $400,000 and you priced it at $375,000, what do you think would happen? You think it would sell for 5% below that? Absolutely not. The market wouldn't let that happen. It'd probably sell for more than $400,000. Not the greatest strategy during a pandemic. I don't recommend that, but that's likely what would happen. So you're seeing, as an example, we were talking about millennials. Man, talk about a section of our population that's going to be hit really hard. Talk about Gen Z for a moment. Holy cow. I mean, they're in even bigger trouble. I mean, they're turning 23 this year, and a lot of them work in retail and food and bev and hospitality. So you tack on the issues that we just talked about with regard to millennials, and then you add on to that the increase in living costs and massive student loan debt, and they're going to be in trouble. I mean, obviously, they're the next wave of homeowners that purchase the property that is being sold by the first-time home seller so they can then go and buy a more expensive property, and that money just trickles up the chain to luxury property. It works both ways. You need people to downsize so that people that are, in their second, third home right now can go and buy their dream home. But you also need the first-time home buyer to purchase the first-time home seller's property so they can move up. So it all works together. And I see some challenges here. Everything is, quote-unquote, okay for now. But what's it going to look like a year from now? 2 years from now? It's really, really, really tough to say. There are some agents that are, doom and gloom right now, saying that, you've got to do something right now. And if you don't, you're going to be sorry. You have other agents saying, hey, it's all good. Just take your time with it. And the reality is this. If you have job uncertainty, it's not the right time to move. If you have equity, then just take care of yourself. Make sure that things are on the up and up with your job, with the employment. Make sure your income is secure. And if you get the sense that everything's going to be just fine and you find some opportunity out there, then go for it. A lot of people have equity right now. They can afford to make the move, and it makes sense for them to make the move because they've been living in a home that they've spent more time in the past 3 months than they have in, the past probably 12, and they're realizing that it just doesn't work for them anymore, or it's not what they want it to look like. So I'm going to continue this discussion, but I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions about the market, anything in particular that's on your mind, you want more information on, the number here is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. We are live in the studio this morning, ready to take your calls. Any questions you have about the real estate market, any concerns you have about the coronavirus, how are we taking precautions to show property and pre-qualify buyers? And, is it worth it to consider selling right now? Can I afford a home? Or any question you might have. Nothing too silly, nothing too complex. Happy to help. And we'd love to hear from you. The number is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. That's the number here in the studio to be on the program. And if you'd like to reach out to me personally, you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, you just have some general questions and want to have a conversation with me off air, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or you can visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So, I was talking before the break about just how some of these different segments of the market and the people within it are being impacted by this pandemic. And I'll tell you that I think we're about to see an increase in the talent pool among real estate agents. And what I mean by that is that obviously we're going to have several agents that probably right now, actually, they're feeling the negative effect of not having done much over the past 30, 60, 90 days. We were, when we got the stay-at-home order, March, when I decided to, close up the office and send, the 15 people on my team home to work from home, we were still very busy. And obviously our business has been very virtual. We're a very tech-driven company. And so it didn't take a lot for us to be able to market things exclusively virtually and show properties virtually. And we were already selling several homes a year without anybody walking through it. So it really wasn't a ton different from us. What was different, of course, was not being able to go to the office and say hello to everybody. And you kind of miss some of that culture. And then some of the accountability, of course, that comes with being in an office. But the agents that kind of hung up their hat or kicked up their feet and turned on Netflix and just kind of had that on in the background throughout the day while they maybe checked some emails and scrolled Facebook. Real estate is a contact sport. If you are not in touch with people, if you're not building relationships, if you're not delivering value, then, I made the joke or make the joke with agents that join the team, which is that, the great thing about being self-employed is that you can control your own schedule, but the bad thing about it is that you wake up every day unemployed until you have clients. So your job is to go and find clients and help them find what they are looking for, help them accomplish their goals. And so I say that because there are, I think, a lot of agents that are going to get out of the business. Almost 90% of agents fail within the first 5 years anyways. So I think that we're kind of ripe for a lot of people to say, you know what, it's just, I don't want to continue with the licensure. I don't want to have to pay my dues. I don't want to have to pay the expenses associated with having my real estate license. I'm only doing a deal or two a year. It just takes too much time and effort. I'm just going to put my license on inactive status. But we're also getting a lot of people that, especially millennials, they've been furloughed. They've been laid off. They've been thinking about getting into real estate. And now they're saying, you know what? What better time than now? We just hired 3 people last week that were fantastically skilled people. Under normal circumstances, without a pandemic, they would have been very happy at their job. I would not have been able to have had those conversations. So, part of the silver lining is that it's opening up the the talent pool for folks like me that are, my business is growing. We're not shrinking, we're not cutting back, we're expanding. And so, if you're thinking about getting into real estate, if you know somebody that wants to, explore those options, I am still hiring. Would love to have those conversations. Again, my number is 400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. So I'll tell you something that we're dealing with right now that is a challenge associated with very low supply, very high demand, and rising prices. And that's appraisals. Appraisers are incredibly busy right now. And again, if you have questions about any of this stuff, if you have a story you want to share, we'd love to hear from you. The number is 556-1250, 843-556-1250. That's the number here in the studio. Don't be afraid to call in and ask your question. We'd love to chat. So the challenge is, because there's just hardly anything available in a lot of these neighborhoods, and we've been dealing with this kind of for years, or at least the tactic associated with this. A buyer will initially give the seller the price that the seller wants, and it looks really good. We get that contract signed, and we're on cloud nine. And then it comes time for the home inspection, and the buyer says, "All right, well, I want all of it. If I'm going to pay top dollar for the house, then I want these things to be repaired." And sometimes they get away with it. Most of the time, they don't get everything, of course. I don't think I've worked with a seller that has ever agreed to do everything. But let's say that they get a decent amount of repairs completed, and then it comes time for the appraisal. Well, if we've got a contract that's been signed between the buyer and seller, and that's for obviously more money than anything else has sold for in that neighborhood, in that area. When you look at appraisers and, what they're required to do to determine value for a property, they have to look at what has sold within the past 6 months. If they can't find enough relevant sales over the past 6 months, then yeah, they can extend to 7, 8, 9 months. But they're not going to go, a year, past a year. It just becomes too irrelevant. And then you have to hope that the appraiser makes the necessary adjustments to your property based on all the things that need to be factored in that determine value. Lot size, lot location, lot features, home amenities, quality of construction, condition, all the amenities on the interior and the exterior. I'll tell you, I have had some real challenging appraisals over the last few months, and it's been pretty ridiculous, quite honestly, some of these appraisals that have come in. And it looks like we've got somebody calling in. So is Robert there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Robert, how are you?
Fine, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing really well, thanks.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. Around my neighborhood here, I see what look like homemade signs, and they're signs advertising a first-time home buyers class. And I was just thinking to myself, maybe that would be something of interest to me, because actually I moved here from Germany 15 years ago, and I don't really know my way around with regard to that kind of a thing. And I'm just thinking maybe that might be a good idea to do. And I just was wondering, what would you look for in a course like that? I mean, not to say that might. First of all, it's probably fairly important, but on the other hand, I'm not really sure which would be a good course and what to look for in a course. In other words, what kind of an instructor to look for, what kind of material should be in the course, and that kind of thing. How would you pick a proper course to learn about how to buy a home for the first time?
Well, Robert, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. And I think a lot of people have the same question, but the reality is this is not a course within an instructor, more than likely. This is a real estate agent that will put on a home buyer seminar if you call, but more than likely they're going to say something like, with everything going on with the coronavirus, how about you and I just get together and meet? Or, why don't we have a meeting over Zoom and talk about what you want to accomplish? It's been around for years and years and years that real estate agents have held first-time homebuyer seminars as a way to attract and earn the business of new clients by giving out, fairly generic but relevant information to first-time home buyers, things that you should consider, do's and don'ts, top 5 tips, things like that. And then, of course, for the people that are truly interested, that kind of pass the first test, so to speak, test being, are you interested in having a conversation with that agent? Then they set up a meeting with you, and it's just like any other, lead generation tactic. They're looking for clients, but they're offering up some information to earn those clients. Frankly, it's a lot like this radio show, if I'm being honest.
What if I were to look, instead of seeking out an agent who conducts a course, what if I just make sure that I find one of the real estate broker, in other words, a firm like Carolina One or something like that, and maybe their firm might conduct a course, and that way I wouldn't be in specifically under a particular agent, something like that.
I'm not aware of any firm that does that, because then they would still have to distribute the leads, and how are they going to do that? How are they going to determine who gets what? And from my perspective, and I don't say this selfishly, but why go to a watered down version of something a brokerage can offer rather than work with a real estate agent that knows what they're doing and can offer you specific relevant information and guidance based on what you want to accomplish?
Well, I've discovered in life, the more you know about the thing that you need done, the better it is. Because, like, if you go to a tax preparer, for example, and you don't know the first thing about income taxes, you won't really know. You won't be able to assess whether that person is really considering everything, or asked all the questions that maybe they should be asking, or maybe considered every aspect from a different standpoints and that kind of thing. And maybe doesn't really know the international situation, because in my situation, since I came from Germany, sometimes there are international aspects to consider, and that person might not know those kinds of things. And of course, the tax might not be done right. So it's better to know what you can. Really, I think.
I think those are really valid points. I'll tell you this: I have a guide for first-time home buyers that is a compilation of questions to ask, things to consider. And you need to interview people. That's the number one mistake I think that people make, is they, and the stats have proven this year over year over year over year over year, which is that people work with the first real estate agent they come into contact with that has a pulse and seems to have some idea of what they're talking about. And so when they say, oh yeah, my agent's good, or they're not good, they don't really know, because they don't have anything to compare it to. So my suggestion is interview people. Let them help you, guide you, consult you, to give you a better understanding of what this process looks like. What questions you should be asking. I'm happy to send you that guide. And if you want to chat with me off air about your goals in further detail, I'm happy to. I got to take a quick break. But I really appreciate you calling in, Robert, and I hope you have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Live in the studio, taking your calls. Happy to answer any questions you guys have about the real estate market, the real estate process, what's happening with the coronavirus right now. Is it a good time to buy, sell, invest? Should we hold off? A lot of people just have a lot of questions right now. We're talking to a lot of folks, and I'll tell you, a lot of folks from the Northeast. Get ready, folks. I'm telling you, in about 9 months from now, we're going to have a population boom as a result of two things. All the people moving down from the Northeast and all the people that made babies. during the pandemic. So, we've been, what has it been, 45 people a day? That's been the stat for a long time, which is like 34 new people a day moving to Charleston and 11 new births a day. I see that continuing. And then you look at all the companies that I think are going to start relocating to Charleston. You're going to have a lot of individual businesses that are going to say, you know what, we've explored the model of allowing people to work from home, and we're going to adopt that policy for these particular positions. It just costs us less money. We don't need as much office space. We can tighten up financially. And what better place to live than Charleston? I mean, if Condé Nast Traveler says it, then it must be true. So a lot of great things I think are going to be happening for Charleston here over the next several years to come. But in the meantime, man, we're having some crazy things happening in this market. And so what I'd like to say is if you're thinking about buying or selling, if you want to know more about whether now is the right time for you to do it, should you take advantage of the timing of the market? If you have equity, should you sell and buy something else if we could find you the right property to move into? I think there's a lot of opportunity for folks that they're frankly not taking advantage of at the moment, just being honest. There are plenty of people that could sell their home for true top dollar right now, transition into something else, and be very happy with the outcome. So if that's something you want to talk about, feel free to give me a call personally. My phone number, which you can call or text, is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You can also send me an email if you prefer to do that. Brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So I want to finish this thought on appraisals because, in an environment where there aren't a ton of sales to match the price that someone is willing to pay for your property, you run the risk of having a buyer being willing to pay more for your home, but the bank saying, sorry, I just can't justify that price. Based on everything else that's sold, it's appraisal worth, the appraisal comes in $5,000 less, $10,000 less. I had a property that I put under contract that is worth $525,000 all day long. You would have to be an idiot to not agree that it is worth at least $525,000. It was so easy to look at the comps and say, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But I had an appraiser who appraised the property. They ordered what's called a desktop appraisal, meaning the appraiser doesn't even go to the house. He just looks online. Well, this was an off-market deal. I sold it before it even hit the market to a buyer. So it's not on the market. There are no pictures for him to look at. So what does this appraiser do? Doesn't even go to the property. Doesn't even take pictures of the property. He says, hey, can you go to the house and take some pictures of it for me and send it to me? Are you serious? Yeah, sure. I'll do that for you. I'll do your job for you. Not a problem. Send him the pictures. The appraisal came in at $475. Tons of errors on the appraisal. Just wrong in so many areas. It boils my blood to this day. And this happened very recently. To have an appraiser that was just that wrong about the value of the property. Plenty of data to support the contract amount. Plenty of data. Adjustments were wrong. He used properties that weren't relevant. He left out properties that were relevant. That's the problem that we sometimes have in markets like this, is appraisers are so darn busy that, they submit their findings, they get paid, and then, they don't get paid anything more to go and, battle with a real estate agent or with a lender or with a buyer or seller about the appraisal report that they provide. And I know some appraisers listen to the show. I'd love to hear from you guys on this. I know you guys have challenges with this. Obviously, we can't just give people the price that they want based on what they're willing to pay. You have to support it with data. But why is there just seems to be such an inconsistency with how you analyze, interpret, and place that data, those adjustments, on the appraisal reports? If you're an appraiser and you're listening right now, or if you've had an issue like this, call into the studio, 843-556-1037, $1,250. I understand the process really well, but I'd love to understand from your perspective what the big challenge is right now, and why sometimes things like this happen. And the other thing that really stinks for people is that if that particular buyer was getting an FHA loan and that appraiser really messed up that appraisal, and we do everything we can to contest it. Let's say that we submit all this new data and we say, hey, well, what about this comp? And what about this comp? And why did you adjust for this? And why did you deduct $30,000 here when you didn't for that other property? You really start to analyze and understand these appraisals. And we give that data back to the appraiser and they choose not to do anything with it. Well, then we can try and make that appraisal invalid. But if they don't make it invalid, if that was an FHA loan, that appraisal would have stuck with that property for 6 months. Meaning, if another buyer wanted to buy that property and they were also getting an FHA loan, in the eyes of anybody else getting an FHA loan, when it comes time to get the appraisal done, it's $475, even though that property is worth $525,000 all day long. So now we're left with people that are putting more money down or paying cash for the property or getting a VA loan. So there are these challenges that we're facing even in markets like this, where buyers might be willing to pay more. Appraisers can't justify giving the value that the buyer is willing to pay. So then what do? Well, it all starts before the appraisal happens. You prepare information to provide to the appraiser to help them justify value. You determine, okay, here are the things that I've done to the property. Here's when I did it. Here's how much it cost. We provide a list of improvements, when we did them, how much it cost. We provide comparables. You're not supposed to talk to the appraiser before you go into the property, but trust me, they appreciate information like this. So if the information is left on the counter, who's to say where that information came from, but it's all relevant data. And I can tell you, in almost every appraisal, the appraiser calls me and asks me questions. Partly because we're selling homes and we're selling them for more money than the home that's sold down the street. And, like I mentioned earlier, we're selling them in just a week. So clearly there's not only urgency and motivation, but willingness to pay for those properties at those prices, which is why I think it's such a great time for people to be considering selling their house. And the more conversations that we have about stuff like this, the more we can track the people that are going to be putting their home on the market at some point in the not too distant future, so that we can then match people up. Hey, you want to sell a home for $300,000 and buy a home for $600,000. Well, I had a conversation 3 months ago with somebody that wants to sell a home for $600,000. And as long as I have the ability to track that data, which I do because we have an awesome system that helps us do that, then we can say, well, you know what? I've got somebody that would consider selling, and it seems like the time frame matches up. We do at least a dozen deals a year that way, rather than, again, just put it on the MLS, hope other agents show it, kind of do the same thing everybody else does. We're really trying to go above and beyond and be in sales, if that makes any sense. You're hiring us to be a consultant for you and a salesman to everybody else. And I think that's what people really appreciate. They want people that are going to go the extra mile. They're going to pick up the phone, flip over rocks, and make something happen. So if you'd like to give me a call, talk about how we're going to help you buy, sell, or invest in real estate, maybe just have some general questions about the market, feel free to call me personally. My cell is 843-400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. And remember, call into the studio. We've got about 10 minutes left, 556-1250, if you want to be on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Last few minutes here, so if you have any questions, comments, stories, concerns, complaints, anything you want to talk about real estate related, The number to call into the program is 843-556-1250. 843-556-1250. Now, if you want to reach out to me personally and talk about your interest in real estate, buying, selling, investing, career opportunities, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com, or email brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So with these last few minutes, I want to talk about something we have been helping a lot of people do recently. You want to sell your house, but you need to make some repairs. You need to possibly make some renovations. And as a result of that, you're nervous to call a real estate agent because you don't want them to come over because you don't want to see your house in disrepair. The number of people that call us after they've already done all of the things that they had planned on doing to their house represents the majority. Meaning, they proactively do the things that they think need to be done to their house in order to prep it for sale. I wish that people would call me before they do those things so that, number one, I can tell them and help them determine what we should be doing, what we should not be doing, and then give them the benefit of all the relationships I have with vendors and contractors to get that work done less expensively. I was talking with a guy last week that installed a new roof, and that guy got taken for a ride, man. He probably paid $5,000-$6,000 more than he needed to spend on that roof. So there are serious savings in working with people that I have relationships with because I trust them. They do a good job for my clients. And they've been vetted. You know, they don't stay on my list if they mess up. And they want to stay on my list because I have a lot of people that get a lot of business from my clients and I. And me personally, because I still invest in real estate. I still flip property. I still own investment property. So here's the challenge that I think a lot of people have. They want to do renovations to their home. They know that if they did, they could sell it for more money and they could profit from the money that they invest into their home. But a lot of them just don't have the money. Some of them do, and they just want guidance on what they should do and should not do to renovate a property. But plenty of people say, man, if I could just do these things to this house, I know I could sell it for X, which represents, profit. So we have been working really hard over the past several months to come up with this game plan. And I'm really excited to announce that if you're interested in renovating your property, then we can not only help you by overseeing the process, determining, of course, if you're going to renovate anything, just like when you're flipping a property, you need to know what that property is going to sell for after all that work has been done. And you, of course, need to know how much that work is going to cost to determine whether you're making money or losing money. Are you flipping or flopping, so to speak? So we can not only help you by overseeing the process, we can not only help you by, of course, determining what it's going to sell for once that work is done and how much it's going to cost, but we can also line up the financing for you so that you're only paying monthly payments. You're not having to write a check for $30,000, $40,000 or whatever the amount of money is to a contractor to do the work. So rather than selling your property to an investor, like all these other, investors or agents are doing, hey, list with me or I'll buy your home. Guaranteed offer, 72 hours. What do you think they're doing? They're investors. They're looking for people that want to sell property for 30 to 35% off of fair market value. If you don't want to give up that much money, why not let me help you renovate the property? We'll line up the financing for you to be able to do that. And then let's make you the money. I'm telling you, there are a lot of folks out there that I think this could really benefit from. And so if you'd like more information on that program, then please give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Just click on the contact tab. Or send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. That's brian@brianbeattyteam.com. All right, folks, it was great chatting with you. I appreciate you listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. And again, if you want more information on that program, 843-400-8009. And we're going to do a best of next weekend. So you guys enjoy your 4th of July. Thanks again for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.